I had the great pleasure of being invited to Logically's second event, LogicCon, in Columbus, Ohio, the week of the 15th of October, 2024. Logically is a managed service provider, but a very large one. I've also had the great pleasure of being acquired. I was the first MSP to be acquired by Logically. So I feel like I'm really part of the community still, or part of the family still. But I went on site. They had a great event. I set up the podcast booth. I had a lot of great conversations with the staff of Logically, with some vendors that were there, and some other people. It was a great time. I'm humbled and thankful that I got the opportunity to do that. The following is one of the conversations at this great event. I want to thank Logically for letting me do this. I had a great time. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission? How do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision, growth through learning from others.
Tell me about yourself. Anything what you do personally?
I'm a pretty quiet guy. I'm a proper tech guy, so most of my time is spent. I do a lot of home labbing. I build a lot of Lego.
Really?
We have about 160 sets now.
160.
Our whole house.
It's
is
amazing.
Lego.
I saw a tulip, or was it some flower that was Lego?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, my wife has all of the flowers. She actually has like a couple of glass vases where she's combined the sets and like has like the glowing rocks like you put in your garden to hold it all together. It's really pretty. She has a great time with that stuff.
So Lego is just infinitely, you could build anything.
Yeah, and we really do. So I've taken a bunch of the sets. I have a couple of 6 foot, like the folding tables you get from like Big Lots, whatever. And I've built like a village out of a bunch of the sets. So I've got like Rivendell on the end. We've got Hogwarts. We've got like just a bunch of little houses. The house from Up. So it's like it's a proper Lego land. Yeah. So we just kind of took it. We were like, if it's Lego, it can go in the village.
Wow.
And so we've just kind of. It's just like my hobby, like, oh, it's lunchtime. I need to not look at a screen. I'm going to go and just put some minifigs, build a few flowers, and just make it pretty.
And Dustin, do you ever take it down and rebuild?
Yes. One time when we moved, I will never do that again. By the time we got to our destination, everything was so shattered into a million pieces that, it's like Hogwarts is 6,000 pieces.
Is it?
And it's easy enough to do when it's in bags, in order, and you can follow directions. When the whole thing's blown up and in just one box, that's a very intimidating project.
So the enjoyment is not just building it, but it's like kind of looking at it and playing with it once it's built.
Yeah, for me, it's become my creative outlet, if that makes sense. So I don't paint, I don't do anything like that, but especially like with our village, it's kind of my way to like, I get to do it however I want. I don't have to think about, like, am I following a policy? Is this it's just my little world to develop. So I don't play with it so much as I just reset the scenes and restructure it, maybe move stuff around to just kind of make just this big kind of static image that gives it like life. Like there's wagons with characters, there's shops, there's little market stalls, stuff like that. It's just my way of breaking away from the rigidity of IT, where we have to stick to so many policies, procedures. We have to be so on point. It just kind of lets me adventure, if that makes sense.
Are you more art or science?
Definitely more science. And I think that's why Lego has become my creative outlet. So it kind of bridges that. Definitely a science guy. Art classes were not my thing.
They were not your thing.
They were not my thing.
Really?
Funny enough. Yep. No, I couldn't paint. I can draw a decent stick figure, but that's about it.
So we're here in Columbus, Ohio. It's Logically's second event, LogicCon. What are some of your goals here this week?
It's really just been about really just meeting people, getting the chance to interact. So I'm fully remote out in Virginia.
Oh, wow.
So it's an opportunity to get to meet a lot of the extended teams that I've never got the opportunity to interact with in person, which has been really incredible, you know. And then, of course, getting to meet all of our clients. I've got clients that work with my teams. I've gotten to meet clients work with other teams.
Oh,
and,
cool.
just really kind of build those relationships up in a way that it's, even though we have a really strong remote culture and we're all interacting, and you know, Josh does a great job of bringing us together and keeping us in communication, there's still stuff like this. There's really no replacement for every once in a while just hanging out with everybody in person, you know.
It's nice, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And I'm not you know, I wanted to be fully remote. I love being fully remote, but there's
pros and
definitely
cons, doesn't it?
it does.
Yeah.
It does. There's certainly things like this where it's like, man, like, you know, if once a week I had to go into an office, that would probably be okay.
Wouldn't be bad. Yeah. Yeah, I've been working home for a while, and like you said, it's nice that you can kind of go and there's no commute. But then there's no commute, not go through traffic. But it's bad because you know, you're just there all the time. I find myself working late at night, and it's tough to refrain from that.
Maintaining those boundaries,
Right.
and that's actually something I did a panel yesterday with Steve Rivera, Jason Hall, and Kara Parfit. And I probably just mispronounced her last name. I'm sorry, but we did one on mental health, and that was one of the things we were really talking about is as remote workers, it's really easy to just go back into the office, open up the laptop, and do that thing.
Right.
But that kills your work-life balance, and it kills your ability to disconnect from work in a lot of ways. So learning how to build those boundaries up has been a big part of me adjusting to remote work. As much as work is important, you've really got to defend your own ground a little bit.
You really do.
Makes sense.
Yeah, life-work balance, especially when you're working home, it's tougher.
Yeah, because your work is around you all the time. Yeah,
it's right there.
And I live in a small apartment, so that desk is visible to me pretty much nonstop all day, you know. And so, but I don't keep anything personal at that desk anymore. I used to keep like my personal laptop and computer there, and my monitors, and I was like, no, I can't do this. Like, this is my work station, and if I'm not working, I'm not sitting there. Because if I sit there to play a game and that loading screen takes on, I can send an email real quick.
Between, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I have a friend who has a candle that they light whenever they're working. Whenever they light the candle. Okay, now I'm working. When I blow it off, I'm no longer working.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Nice little switch.
Like associating it with that smell.
Yeah,
too.
the smell and the sound, the visual of it. Yeah, so that's why they make this distinction.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Pretty good idea. Yeah, I've yet to do that, but yeah.
See, what I do is I have like one of those old school partitions. You know, the 3 folding partitions. That's what I have. And whenever I am done with work, I actually close that across the entrance to my desk. Like I'm closed for business.
For business.
Yep.
So you see it
psychological.
And service delivery, what do you do there?
So service delivery is effectively a fancy way of saying I'm in charge of the help desk folks, the frontline people, you know, answering the phones, talking to people every day, you know, getting into the mix of it all. So I manage 2 teams that do that all day, every day. And then my job is really just to support them, make sure if they've hit a roadblock, I'm getting them the right resource. Maybe I can help solve it itself, and just kind of keeping the train on the tracks, you know, especially being I have a lot of tier 1s, you know, they need to respond quickly. They have a small amount of time to act on it and decide I can solve it, or I need to get this to somebody else. And so it's a higher pressure role in that regard, having a lot of the T1s, because if they need help, they've got 10, 15, 20 minutes left maybe before they need to make a decision. So they can't necessarily wait for me to just, I'm in a meeting, like I'll get back to you in an hour, like that. It's, you know, which I like. I've been an MSP guy all my life.
Yeah.
It's the chaos is the fun. And so that's really just what I do all day, is just kind of, who needs help? What do you need help with? We're going to solve a problem. And it's unique. I've been in IT management for several years now, and Logically is really the first place I still get to exercise that technical brain and not just be a people manager in this role.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And is there a certain geography you cover?
So I actually have the Cleveland, Ohio team, and I have the Gainesville, Georgia team.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm split up, but it's two markets that do a lot of remote work. There's there's on-site certainly, yeah, and so we have the local folks there, but those two teams collaborate and overlap a lot. Both groups will help clients from other, because we all report to me. I'm in charge of it. It's a good system, and then if, like, goodness gracious, like they had the hurricane down in Georgia.
Yeah.
We had several people and a lot of clients that were affected by that,
yeah.
by Helene especially. And the Ohio guys were able to step in because their weather was fine and resolve a lot of the problems, take over some of that workload, and they're already familiar. And so we kind of did that way so that there's some redundancy, Now, granted, Helene did end up also actually hitting Ohio too, a little bit of a freak storm, but generally speaking, if one's affected by something, the other one is usually whole because you're that far apart. So I work with both of those markets, and there's other groups in our region too, as well, that we lean on. Yeah.
Anybody in the Connecticut area?
No, so that's a different region for me. I'm the
cool.
mid region,
You're mid.
and then that's the east region for
I see.
Connecticut. Although I know quite a few of those people over the
Dylan?
years.
Do you know Dylan?
Dylan
Platt.
Yeah, oh yeah. I've talked to him a couple of times.
He was mine.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So he's been with the group a long
since
time.
I sold.
And that's amazing to me is some of these folks have been, 10, 15 years technically with the organization. If you count the time pre-acquisition, it's pretty incredible.
Reach out to him. Yeah. And so what should small businesses know about working with help desks?
That's a tricky one. A few things that I try to, whenever we have a new client, especially a smaller client come on board, is that we're not ignoring you. A lot of times small organizations come from a mom and pop MSP that they've outgrown. They're ready for something a little bigger. Or maybe just a single practitioner who's just doing it, on his own. And a lot of times they'll be able to respond nearly instantly to them, because they only have 3, 4, 5 groups they work with, and we are really good about meeting our SLA. But technically, we get 30 minutes or an hour, depending on your agreement, to reach out to you. And we'll have clients be like, hey, we didn't hear from you for 15 minutes. And it's like, we need to meet in the middle somewhere. And that's something that is a very big growing pain I've noticed. Small businesses coming into a larger help desk environment, a more matured help desk environment, is sometimes those expectations can be a little out of whack.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's not always a bad thing, because it does push us to be faster. It pushes us to be better, because at the end of the day, yes, we're a business, and yes, we make mistakes, but the folks we have on the front line are helpers. And none of us want to see a ticket sit. None of us want to see a ticket wait, So whenever clients are like, hey, could you push a little harder, it gives us a little more drive. So it's not a bad thing.
Right.
It's a meet in the middle thing.
That kind of level set.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other big thing that small businesses need to understand working with help desk is that we don't know everything. We have security teams. We have a NOC team. We have people who are experts in specific fields. And a lot of times whenever people call in and they reach that person who answers the phone, they're like, everything tier 1 through 3. You're just going to solve it right now. And a lot of times, especially in an organization like Logically, where we do have specialized departments focused on those specific business units, we have to hand off that ticket to another person so that they're taken care of properly. And sometimes that's a strange thing for a smaller client who, again, came from a place where one person did kind of do it all. But, we have these more sophisticated tools. We can't expect a tier 1 to know the ins and outs of Sentinel-1 and solve why something's getting blocked necessarily in 15 minutes.
Right. What is it about technology that attracts you, Justin?
Dustin. Oh, you're good. That's a really good question. I think it's that it's just always been my life. My mom was an IT person.
Really?
Yeah, she did IT for our public library. She worked at the public library where I grew up. So I remember helping her when I was maybe like 10, 11 years old, sitting right beside her. She was configuring firewalls and stuff. I was
Wow.
like, this is cool. And then she started doing classes to teach people in the community how to use computers better and stuff, and writing grants and all that, and just seeing the way that technology could impact their lives, because that's what she did. Like 4 days a week, she had classes with people, and we did everything from Microsoft Word to like how do you make a PowerPoint to, you know, how do you get into your modem and do all that kind of stuff. And I think that really instilled that technology is this really incredible thing,
Right.
you know. And a lot of people say like, oh, it's the constant change, it's the growth, but I think it's just, for me, it's the way it can impact people's lives and the opportunity to help them grow with technology is really what excites me.
Wow.
Like I like to interact with the clients. I like to, hey, okay, you have a budget, like let's figure out good tools for you. Let's see how we can mature. Like the building of it and the creating something. You know, it's almost like Lego, I guess.
Yeah.
To me, it's a little bit of an art form.
Back to Lego.
Yeah, I like building.
Yeah.
I like building. I like creating. I was a diesel mechanic before I went in IT.
Really?
Grew up on a farm. You know, like it's fixing things is just in my blood, and helping people is just it's what I've done since I was this tall.
You're just using different tools.
Different tools. Yeah, and you know, mechanics is not terribly dissimilar.
Right.
You get a ticket from your service writer. It's just on paper.
Right.
Saying, here's what the client said.
Sure.
This is the problem. And then you go diagnose it. You say, okay, this is what I got to do to fix it. Can I keep your car for 2 hours? Can I keep your computer for 2 hours? Okay. And then I'm going to fix it. And then I'm going to close that ticket out. And then I switched to IT and doing this stuff. And I was like, okay, except now I get to type it. I don't have to write it down and keep paper straight anymore. You know, they overlap a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything recently, last 30 days or so, Dustin, that you changed your mind on?
AI.
Elaborate.
I've never really bought into the whole AI thing. I finally gave Copilot a try.
Yeah.
And
Microsoft Copilot.
yeah. And what it has done for me in my ability to quickly get my engineers resources is incredible.
Really?
I guess I don't know if you sat in any of the sessions. Alex Burton, our Microsoft 365 guy, was talking about this, that it's kind of replaced Google for him. Give me 5 good results, summarize those results, and then I'm going to go proofread those, make sure that the actual links match up. But then I don't have to sift through all of the ads and the promoted stuff and everything else that has made finding stuff on Google or Reddit or anywhere else so difficult the last year or so, as they've started, you know, trying to keep everything from crawl the internet and all that fun stuff. And it is really, like, I can say, I always use this example, I don't know why. Hey, I need an SSL VPN guide for whatever random registrar that this client has that I haven't worked with before, and it'll just pump out a little guide. Here's a couple of links. Here's the link to the actual registrar's knowledge base. And it's like, man, like I've got 3 good triangulated sources to reference here, and I didn't have to do anything other than type in a sentence.
Wow.
You know, and for me, that really kind of changed the game. I don't necessarily buy into all of the hype yet.
Sure.
But for me, AI is really, truly the next generation of search for me. Yeah.
And it's made, I'm going to say the word easier, but it's made less time consuming.
Less time consuming.
Yeah.
The efficiency of it. Because, I mean, you think about, like, when's the last time you Googled something and like actually went to google.com and Googled something, and then the first 3 links are ads, and then the next 4 are SEO to heck and have absolutely nothing to do with what you're looking for. Half the time I'm on page 2 or 3 before I find what I actually need, and I've spent 5
then
to
refine
10
the search.
minutes.
Yeah.
And
you put it in the LLM and you find it.
And then it gives me those sources, because hallucinations are major concern.
Yes, it is.
Like, I can't just trust that it's giving me
hallucination
good
is when they give you false information.
Yep. And so, but it gives me the links to the sources it pulled from, and I don't have to sift, but I can go and make, okay, yeah, you did a good job here. I'm going to send that on to my engineer. Give this a try. You know.
Yeah, it's good to hear because I'm generally asking people how AI has influenced them. Everybody's similar saying, it was threatened by certain things, but I'm finding that it does solve these kinds of issues pretty quickly. Those kinds of research issues.
Yeah, yep, yep. And I've used it a time or two to help like format an email, like hey, like I'm struggling to break this paragraph up maybe, and it'll give good recommendations there. One of my favorite things about it, and this is personal, this isn't work, but because I started using it personally too.
Yeah, me
was
too.
I went on vacation. I didn't check my email for a week, and I came back to an email thread with some friends that was 40 emails long. And I was like, I'm not reading that. Copilot.
And it summarized it.
It summarized it enough that like I could jump back into the conversation.
Right in.
Yeah.
That is nice.
And I find that that's what it really excels at, is the things that consume time for me but aren't terribly complex, if that makes sense.
What motivates you, Dustin?
Helping people.
It's a quick answer.
Yep.
It's always been that way?
Always. Doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Really?
If I see somebody broke down side of the road, I'm pulling over to help.
Yeah.
If I see an accident, I'm gonna pull over to help. If I just see somebody having a bad day, it's I'm sure you've heard it in IT, the dopamine rush from closing a ticket.
Sure, it's great.
It's effectively, I've just been doing that my whole life. It's like
closing tickets.
Helping people makes the world better.
Yeah.
And I love when I can get on a call with somebody and they're frustrated as can be. And then by the end of that call, you're cracking jokes with each other. You've solved their problem. And it's just, you made an influence on their day. They're going to go crack a joke to somebody else who might be having a bad day. And it just kind of cascades. And that's just try to put that good out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, life is about closing tickets. That's very interesting, helping people. So given that motivation, Dustin, how do you measure success?
Contentedness.
If you're content.
Now, not speaking like professionally or metrics or anything, just like in my personal life and just in general, contentedness. If I can go to sleep with a clean conscience and mind at the end of the day, and I'm fine. Life is a challenging beast, and there's always something wrong. And just being able to find, and I'll credit my wife with this because I was a lot grumpier 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. But she absolutely instilled in me finding the silver linings. No matter how bad it is, there's something positive that can be gleaned from it, even if it's just a lesson. And that's really changed my outlook on that stuff, and really brought me to that where contentedness is happiness. And in the same way, even, again, not talking about necessarily metrics, but with my team, that's a measure of success for me. If we're not having turnover, if everybody's doing okay, if everybody feels like, coming to work is not a chore, then I've done good, and then all the other things tend to fall into place because people are happy with the people they work with. They feel positively about work. The productivity's there. The excitement's there. They're going to take good care of your clients. We're going to meet our metrics. Everything else starts to fall into place if you can just take care of the people. And so that's kind of
that's wonderful.
My philosophy on it is we have things we have to do, but if we can take care of the people first, they'll take care of our clients for us.
You mentioned 5 years ago you were a grump and now you're not. What turned you around?
My wife.
Yeah.
I mean, just most people. I was at that point just working a job, and I was getting through. We were just trying to figure out life, and when she popped in with just a little ray of sunshine, she's the yin to my yang in a lot of ways. She's the very bubbly, very creative. Hey, let's go out, let's go do this, let's go, like constantly energetic, and it rubbed off on me. I'm an introvert. I like to stay at home, build Legos and play video games. And it just brought a really fresh perspective to the whole world for me. And that was really all that changed, was just finding my person and letting her lead me into a new view of the world.
So Dustin, I started my MSP back in the 90s, was working way too hard, 14, 16-hour days, terrible. putting my health in the back seat.
Mhm.
I'm at the doctor, and she tells me that I'm 340 pounds. I
Yeah.
gained all this weight. Says to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So it scared the hell out of me.
Sure.
Spent the next 6-7 months, lost about 130 pounds, kept it off. And people hear that they want a quick answer, secret. And there's no secret. Discipline. That's how I kept it off. I got focused. I created a routine. I had some drive. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
I would say quite a lot. I'm a pretty rigid person in that regard. It's not something I actively think about a lot, but I'm not the kind of person to wake up late. I'm not the kind of person to stand down from something. If there's something to be done and we need to get it done, maybe it's an instilled trait in me from my youth, but I kind of like what you said is you just got to get into the focus.
Yes.
You've got to find the drive, the motivation. But you have to be in IT very disciplined all the time. And you were talking about, you started back in the 90s, and it was, I can't imagine how hard
Very
some
different.
of the chaos,
Yeah.
of not being able to do a lot of stuff remotely, I'm
Right.
sure was an incredible challenge.
Very different.
And then now we have this very on-demand culture. We need stuff solved right now. We can just pop in a computer right away. But you still, even if you can do something instantly, you have to be thinking the whole security picture. You have to be disciplined in any change you make. Does this change the security posture? Do I need to have a discussion? So, I think discipline in IT is almost a necessity from any level. It's hard to really define that one for me, other than that it is just kind of, it's required for what we do at this point. Because if you make a mistake, the consequences can be catastrophic. If you leave an account vulnerable and that client gets ransomwared, that's on you.
Horrible.
And you have to just constantly be disciplined, rigid, focused on protecting everything. That's probably about as good of an answer on that one as I can give.
Yeah. Have you ever considered yourself a disciplined person, self-disciplined person?
No,
No.
not really. Like I said, I grew up on a farm, so I
Right.
understand the principle of, hey, we got a problem.
Right.
It needs fixed,
Right.
and we got to fix it no matter what. You got to have, you're going to go research and do that stuff. And with that, we had to be up early. We had chores, and they weren't negotiable. If you didn't do the chores, the animals were not going to eat, or so it really instilled in me the discipline that when something or somebody is relying on you, you have to rise to the occasion. But yeah, I've never really honestly thought about whether I am or not. I try to, outside of work, not be quite as much, be a little more flexible and free. Because, like I mentioned, work requires a lot of that discipline.
It certainly does, yeah. Real pleasure talking with you today. So if anybody's listening, they want to get in touch with you, probably LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you'll be there. We'll make sure we put it in the show notes. Dustin, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Great pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.